Hey, J-Kick here, and I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're through 8 weeks of the season, and we are not yet halfway through the fantasy football or regular football season. So, very odd to think that we now have 17 games, and there are going to be no longer any 8-8 teams, unless you have a tie. But in any case, 8 weeks through the season of 17 weeks. We still have some teams that are doing very well, some teams that are not doing very well. There are no undefeated teams, so 72 Dolphins, you are still safe. The Eagles are 7-1, even though my Washington Red Potatoes could not quite get anything done against them twice. It was a one-score game, so, you know, the life of a Red Potato fan. There's some other teams that are doing pretty well that not necessarily weren't expected, but they're surprising given their performances the last decade, 2 decades. Jacksonville Jaguars 6-2, Detroit Lions 6-2, Seattle Seahawks are 5-2. They have had a bye. The Dallas Cowboys are also 5-2. They've had a bye. There are teams that are not doing as well as we thought they were going to do. The 49ers started out hot and then dropped a few games. The Buffalo Bills, who can make anything out of them? Josh Allen is playing out of his mind, still turning the ball over quite a bit, but can't seem to get over the hump. I mean, they're not bad, but you definitely expected more from the Buffalo Bills. The Dolphins are doing very well, also sitting at 6-2 with, track stars all over the field. So definitely looking forward to seeing how the rest of this year plays out, but also looking forward to see how the rest of our fantasy season plays out. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it and talk about the Vince McMahon Football Club, where I came up with a win this week, 157-140, bringing my record to 6-2. My top scorer was Jalen Hurts with 35, then A.J. Brown with 26, then the Texans defense with 24, who I told you to pick up last week, and finally Travis Etienne with 22. On the opposite side of that fence, Deontay Foreman only got me 3 points, and Christian Kirk only got me 4 points. So definitely not the performance I wanted from them, but we still did come up with the win. Speaking of Deontay Foreman, he was one of my pickups for this past week, including Jonnu Smith and Josh Downs. My drops included Jordan Mason, no big deal, Jamal Williams, no big deal, and DeAndre Hopkins. He had 3 touchdowns. That hurt. Still won, but man, that hurt. Staying on the same platform, but moving over to the Majestic Juggernauts, we caught the L this week, 114-111. If you're like me, I like to see who I could have or should have started in order to win the game. This week I had a few options, including Darrell Henderson Jr. over Tony Pollard, which wouldn't have made a lot of sense, and Romeo Doubs or Josh Downs over Christian Kirk, which, again, wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense. But in any case, there were options for me to have won. I just wasn't able to fulfill those. It's okay, though. 5-3, not a bad record. My leading scorer this week was Jalen Hurts with 34, followed by Jahmyr Gibbs with 24. On the opposite side of that, I had a few guys who did not perform well for me, including Tony Pollard, who only scored 5 points, Christian Kirk, who only scored 4 points, and Dallas Goedert, who only scored 3 points. I don't know if I'm going to start him this week, so you're welcome to start him at your own risk. And because I'm not starting him, I know he's going to do well. So you can thank me in the comments for not starting him so you can start him and he can do well. The ads included Darrell Henderson Jr., Josh Downs, and Dustin Hopkins, while the drops included Brandon Cooks, Jason Myers, and Jordan Mason. Moving platforms to talk about the Party Time Party Boys. This week I lost 142-121, bringing my record to 5-3. Jahmyr Gibbs was my top scorer with 29 points, while Patrick Mahomes only scored 7. Christian Kirk got me 8 and Kenneth Walker Jr. got me 8, but I'm still mad over Mahomes only getting me 7. That was crap. Come on, man. What are you doing? 7 points? Looking on my bench to see who else I could have started, I did have Kirk Cousins, who got 15 points. And also a torn Achilles, so I wasn't able to thank him or start him at all this year. But, I'm still 5-3. The ads this week included Taysom Hill, Josh Downs, and Chubba Hubbard. I'm not sure how to say his name. I prefer Chubba Hubbard because it reminds me of Hubba Bubba Bubblegum. The drops included Brandon Cooks, Zach Ertz, and Jordan Mason. And the Deranged Easter Bunny is the last team we're going to talk about. This week I won 193-162. Got kind of lucky because the guy I was playing started a few guys that probably shouldn't have been starting and sat a few guys that probably should have been playing. But in other words, I still won. May it have been luck or not. My top scorer this week was Joe Burrow with 69. Nice. followed by Tyreek Hill with 31, and Jordan Addison and Breece Hall both getting me 22. One of my pickups and suggestions from last week, Jonnu Smith only got me 2 points, while Max Crosby got me 0. Not going to get a sack every single game, but, could have, gotten half a sack. My ads this week included Jacoby Myers, only because he had like 3 good weeks of finding the end zone, not because I had any faith in him or his quarterbacks. I also grabbed Taysom Hill and Jonnu Smith at tight end positions, Dustin Hopkins, and the Cleveland Browns defense. The drops included both tight ends Zach Ertz and Jonnu Smith, running back Jordan Mason, defense for Seattle, and kicker Brett Maher. Looking at my bench to see how I could have done better this week, I did sit Sam Howell, who got me 97 points, and Tyler Lockett, who got me 23 points. I'm not a believer in Lockett, not a believer in Geno Smith, and I hate any wide receiver that is from Seattle. Remember I said this, I think it was week 3, Tyler Lockett went off and had 2 touchdowns. Well, Tyler Lockett had another good game this week, obviously, and I didn't start him. And I'm probably not going to start him unless I'm on a bye week and absolutely positively need to start him. I don't believe in the Seattle Seahawks offense, other than Kenneth Walker. Hold on. And I sure don't believe in their wide receivers. DK Metcalf, maybe, but you still got to have someone to throw it to you. I'm not saying Geno Smith's not good. Definitely not saying that. But I'm just not a believer. I don't like the Seahawks offense other than Kenneth Walker, and I definitely don't like their wide receivers. Looking at the guys that my opponent decided to play opposed to the people who are on his bench, he decided to play Darren Waller over Cole Kmet. Now, I wouldn't have blamed him, but Cole Kmet got 17 points. Waller got 1. That would have been an additional 16 points. He also played Lamar Jackson, which anyone would have, but Lamar only got 32 points, whereas Kirk Cousins got 53 points. Again, that's not a decision you would have made, but had he been able to make that decision or mistake, whichever one you want to look at it as, he would have beat me. So I got a little bit lucky. That does it for the wrap-up. Now let's look at some of the guys you might want to add this week. Starting with quarterback Will Levis. Malik Willis is not the guy. Ryan Tannehill probably is no longer the guy. I don't know if Will Levis is the guy, but he sure did show a whole heck of a lot of promise in that game last week with 4 touchdowns. He's going to be a guy who's going to be starting in this week, and when he has Derrick Henry to hand it off to and DeAndre Hopkins to literally chuck up there and be like, F it, I know he's down there somewhere, even in his old age, Hopkins can still get up. I did release him from one of my teams. I know. Cool it. That was a mistake. But I don't still believe in his ability to do what he did in Arizona. But in any case, Will Levis is probably a quarterback you want to look at. Joe Henderson Jr. is going to be the guy in the Rams offense. Matt Stafford did hurt his thumb, so I feel like that's going to be even more pressure on the offensive line to protect him, but also to get some push up front. So Joe Henderson Jr. being the bigger, stronger back, I think he's going to get some carries this week and probably going to be someone to look at for your team. At wide receiver, if for some odd reason he's still available, Josh Downs. He has become an instant playmaker in Indianapolis with Gardner Minshew under center, looking his way multiple times, almost getting double-digit targets every game. I think it's like 7 or 8, so, round up, it's almost 10. But in any case, I think Josh Downs is going to be a good add if you can go ahead and jump on him in your league. And at tight end, the Swiss Army knife, Taysom Hill. I think he is going to do a lot of good for Derek Carr. Instead of the offense only going through Alvin Kamara and whatever happening with Chris Olave, I think that Michael Thomas is going to be able to take some pressure off of Taysom Hill. I think Taysom Hill is going to be able to take some pressure off of Derek Carr. And I think both of them, Thomas and Hill, are going to be able to take some pressure off of Alvin Kamara. That does it for all the players. As far as the teams that you should look at for defense, everyone's going to be looking at and talking about the Atlanta Falcons. I don't believe in them. I'm not believing in the Falcons at all. But I am glad that they finally made the change from Desmond Ridder to Tyler Heineke. I think that's going to open up a lot more for Drake London. At least I hope for my sake it does. I hope his groin injury isn't going to stop him from playing in the game this week. But in any case, Tyler Heineke is starting over Desmond Ridder. And the rookie Jaron Hall is going to be starting in place of Kirk Cousins. I don't know how long it's going to last because they did trade for Josh Dobbs, so we'll see how that goes. But if you need a defense, the Atlanta Falcons, but a secret defense that no one would think of, The Giants. Add the Giants. They've had 2 great weeks. They're going to be going in a game this week that is winnable. So, I mean, yes, they've only won 2 games. I know. They beat my Washington Red Potatoes. I get it. Stop hurting me. But in any case, the Giants have a pretty good matchup this week. I think they might be a sneaky sleeper pick. So if you want to pick them up, go ahead. Well, that does it for the wrap-up and the people I think you should add. Thank you for joining in. I will be talking to you next week for Week 9. This is J-Cake, and I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me.